When I was young, I didn't always feel at home in the world. I've shared with you this before. I've shared with you the ways I didn't feel at home in my body, growing up in a large body in the heroin chic days of New York City in the 80s and 90s. How I didn't always feel at home out in the big world. I went through puberty very young and experienced resulting commentary from far too many grown men. How I didn't feel at home with my peers, thinking well before they did about things like death and the afterlife and what it all means and not having anyone to talk to about it. There were things I experienced as a child that made me feel out of place. I remember time after time we would go to parent-teacher conferences and the teachers would tell my mother how mature I was. And I know they meant it as a compliment for sure, but there was something about it that also asked too much, maybe, or just made me feel really different. It was a thing I probably at once both prided myself on and hated about myself, right? That sense of separateness. It took me a long time, until divinity school, to find peers concerned with the same things I was concerned with. It took me a long time, until graduate school, to learn how to let go a bit and live like my peers in the ways I wanted to, going out dancing and getting dressed up. And it took me a long time, probably until just a few years ago, if we're honest, to come to something that approaches peace with this body of mine. I suppose I had hoped by now I'd have it all figured out. But sometimes, even now, I still don't feel at home in the world. When I don't have that sense of peace, of being at home in my own being, when I'm going through a time of like big feelings, I know that then I withdraw, I get awkward, I get extra sensitive to what other people have to say. And then it does that thing where it like confirms that I'm different and alone and apart. And then it just like compounds in this terrible cycle, right? It is a source of great chagrin for me, I can assure you. But I suspect that if I'm lucky enough to make it another 41 years, I'll still sometimes feel disconnected from myself, out of time, out of place, a little bit alone, a little bit anxious. I suspect I will always sometimes feel like I'm not perfectly at home in the world. Perhaps you know this feeling. Perhaps it is simply part of being consciously human and trying to do the work of knowing ourselves deeply. The question of home is really complicated, actually. I used the phrase just now, at home in the world, to describe a sense of groundedness and sort of internal serenity. What we mean at any moment when we use the word home is multi-layered. We often contrast it to house, and that is actually really important. There's an intuitive difference. Not every house feels like a home. I've had places I've lived over the years that I truly loved and felt comfortable and safe in, places that had all my stuff in them, but I didn't feel at home there, right? There's a distinction between house and home, between physical shelter and emotional wellness, between stuff and sanctuary. For millennia, humans have made structures that have kept us safe from the elements and that have kept our belongings secure and our loved ones close. This little video from The Atlantic that we're going to show you is quite delightful. I'm going to keep talking while it plays. It catalogs just some of the different structures, assuming we can get the technology to work. Okay, there we go. It catalogs just some of the structures that humans have made over millennia, from caves to tents to mobile homes to giant mansions. There have been and continue to be many different types of structures that we might call houses or call homes. Nate Silver's website, 538.com, which you may know best from their polling analysis during election season, has actually a whole section called Science Questions from a Toddler. And one of those questions is, who built the first house and what even is a house? The answer to this 4-year-old's question is thorough and interesting, and you should go look it up. And I want to share with you one part. Quote, what Jerry Moore, professor of anthropology at California State University, Dominguez Hills, and author of The Prehistory of Home, thinks really sets a human house apart what makes a house a home, is the culture we layer on top of the architecture. Only humans that we know of have the concept of home, where there are so many values associated with place. And those values, the way we live, seem to then be reflected in what we build. By this definition, houses are the structures, the shelters we build, but home, that word talks about how we live in those structures, how they hold us in this world, the way we feel when we are in them, the safety and sanctuary they do or do not offer to us. There's some good ones in here. The reading from Dominique Browning that Laura shared speaks to this. A structure is a structure, but when we fill it with love, when we fill it with laughter and tears and all the things that a life brings, it comes to contain an energy unto itself. Have you ever entered a space and just immediately felt a sense of calm? Or come into a space and felt a sense of joy? Or entered a space and felt instantly turned off by its tension? Browning suggests to us that places can come to carry memories vibrating, pulsing with the history they have witnessed. If you've ever been in a place that's very, very old, you may have felt that sense. We fill the shelters and the structures we build, however temporary or permanent, however grand or however modest, we fill them, not with stuff, but with living. And Browning states unequivocally that there is always room for more love. Even if we max out our physical space, there's always space for memory, for being human. The chambers swell, she says. Conscientious creation of the space we call home, unfettered love, history, grief, joy. These are the things that turn a house into a home. So we recognize that difference, right? That difference between house and home. But there's another layer. There's another layer to that sense of home, because even the most love-filled, wonderful place won't feel like home if we feel at sea in ourselves. I don't know that I necessarily understood what home meant when I was young, not really. I had that feeling so well articulated in Robert Frost's line about home. He said, home is the place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I was lucky, indeed, that that was my experience of the home I grew up in. I knew I was loved. I knew if I fell, someone would catch me. I knew I had a place I could go back to. Not everyone has that. And the solidity of that beginning has enabled the risks and experimentation of my life, and I have always been and will always be grateful for it. And yet, I didn't really understand that second layer of homeness. I didn't understand why sometimes even that kind of home felt wrong or felt off. Why even when I knew I could always come home, I didn't necessarily feel like I always belonged. James Baldwin said that perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition. Maybe home isn't a place, or maybe we might say the concept of place comes further down in the way we define a home. It comes below love and laughter and the people that fill the structure, and it comes below our own sense of feeling right in this world. We are very small, really. We've talked here before about the vastness of space and time, how humans in the history of existence, if mapped onto a day, take up the last fraction of a second just before midnight. We've talked about how there are untold numbers of stars and galaxies beyond our comprehension, and we are just a speck. We are also so very large, really. Words from our mouths can crush another's spirit or lift them up in ways we may never understand. The actions of our hands can bring destruction or can create and build and grow. In the course of our lifetime, we make an unknowable impact on others and on this world. Holding these two realities side by side is hard. Knowing our place, its smallness and its hugeness, is hard. And I've been wrestling with what it means to be at home in ourselves this week. And here's what I think. I think that we only come to be at home in the world by finding an at-homeness in ourselves when we realize both our finitude and our infinitude. That's a word. Holding those truths together helps us to understand that our lives are short, but our choices matter. Holding those truths together encourages us to be honest and uncover who we are while we still have the time to do so, and to live that out in the world if it is safe to do so. Taking risks and making choices to build up lives and homes and communities that will enable more risk-taking. Life is too short to worry about the size of our body. Life is too short to worry about quitting that job or moving someplace new or starting a new relationship and all the judgment that other people are going to have. Life matters too much not to choose love and joy and community and justice every single time. Fundamentally, life is too short to hold ourselves apart and alone. Part of why I didn't feel at home in the world when I was young is because I held myself apart from my own hopes and dreams and desires, apart from the people around me. Part of that was fear of judgment. Part of that was not knowing any other way to be. Part of that was self-consciousness. All of it formed me, and all of it I needed to move beyond, because it was a cycle, a self-fulfilling prophecy, and yes, I still sometimes suffer from it. It's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be when you get stuck there because you don't always know how to find your way out or back. Last week, we heard a parable about a child who left home. You may remember this. When their parent asked them to come back, the child said, I can't do it. I can't make it all the way back home. And the parent said, just come as far as you can, and I'll meet you there. Often we don't come back home to ourselves, to our communities, to our people, because we realize suddenly that we should, and we just do it on our own. Often we aren't sure how to, or even that we need to, until someone invites us home. Until someone sees us out at sea, sees us alone, apart, and calls out our name. Come on back. The trick, of course, is letting ourselves be seen and known in the first place. Taking that first leap of entering into relationship and community, creating a place of safety and vulnerability. Because if we are part of a community that knows who we are, if we have relationships with people who know who we are, know our names, see our truths, then they'll be there to call out to us, to catch us when we fall, to hold us, to bring us back to ourselves when we aren't sure how to do it, to meet us halfway when we can't find our way ourselves. When I walk in this building on Sundays or any other time of the week, I get that feeling, right? It holds the memories of generations of people, growing, learning, living, serving, loving, eating, crying together, filling this place with vibrations of human experience. And it's a place made whole and real and made home by the people who see each other, know each other, help each other, call out to each other, who enable each other's wholeness and bring each other home to themselves and to this place that we share. This is our first homecoming weekend. It's an experiment, and I think it's been a success. When we invited you home to this place, we invited you more truly home to these people. That invitation isn't for one weekend, it's forever. That invitation isn't mine or Anne's or the board's alone to give. It is all of ours to give to anyone, here or out there, who needs a place or wants a place to call home. A place to be known and held safe in vulnerability, secure in the risks they want to embark on, loved into their wholeness, so that they can give their lives fully, live them in all of their smallness and all of their greatness. I want to offer you, by way of bringing us to a close, these words by Starhawk, words that capture what this home that we build together can be. Starhawk says, "We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us when we come into our power. Community means strength. Strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey of becoming, these people can be your home, your sanctuary, your third place, your place of safety and empowerment. It's what we create together with our vulnerability and our courage and our loving. Thank you for building this home together with us. Thank you for being you. Thank you for welcoming each other so truly and wholly. Thank you for coming home.